since I found out I could talk to my grandpa in the afterlife through a psychic medium, I realized he has so many nuggets of wisdom to share with me, which I hope to share with you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions for Grandpa Luan, comment below and they might be featured in our next video. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi guys, so today we are going to talk about plant consciousness with Grandpa Luan. So this is a topic he's pretty passionate about, and yeah, because he's told us it's a topic he really wants us to know about. So what is plant consciousness, and what do you want us to know about it?
Yay! Grandpa Luan loves plants, and he loves plant consciousness because Grandpa Luan was a very observant man, and he was very humble, and he took in a lot of information. Didn't necessarily talk about it, but he was very observant, and he liked to learn from things. He's a very old soul, and he has this kind of monk-like energy to him because he's just had very many like spiritual lives, and he's gotten to learn things from other lives about just how to respect nature and plants and animals and people. So he just loves plant consciousness, and then this is why. Because plants they're very high vibrational beings. They're very, that's why when you drink plants, as Drang and I are doing right now, we're drinking some green juices, it makes you feel really good, and it makes you feel very energized because there's a very pure energy that comes off of them. And plants are very intelligent, and people don't realize how intelligent they are. So Grandpa loves to learn from them because there's a lot of lessons we can learn about stillness and about going with the flow. And he's saying native cultures, there's a lot of native cultures that understood this about plants, including trees or like vines or whatever plants were native to their lands. And they observed these traits and qualities in them, and they're actually very coveted types of traits, like the ability to be still like a tree, to stand through the tough times like a tree, and to be still, and to like be strong and powerful even if you're in one place, right?
Wow.
So if you're dealing with issues where you're bedridden, you can learn a lot from a tree, let's say, about being stuck in one place but still being able to have strength. Plants are also they're very community oriented in some ways. They're territorial, but they're also kind of community oriented, and they just have a very beautiful life cycle, and they really they take from the earth, but they really do give back so much to the earth. So there's just so many beautiful lessons we can learn from plants, and really one of the big issues is we underestimate them a lot, and we abuse them, and we step on them. We step on them all the time and don't even realize we're hurting them. And it's just, he wants people to know that plants are special too, and they have a right to live too, and to learn how to work with them rather than against them. Some of the most potent medicine is made from plants we can consider weeds, oddly enough. So it's about changing our perspective. Instead of us just being dominant species like weed killer and all this stuff, it's about bending to nature a little more, bending into nature a little bit, and to learn how to be part of that ecosystem instead of trying to force ourselves against it, into it, and displacing wildlife, displacing plant life. So he also encourages people to get to know the plants that are native to their area, and they have a lot of lessons to give if you're willing to listen. And they all have different energies that you can learn to tune into. So he's saying if you want to study like herbalism, or if you want to study plant medicine in general, that's a great way to kind of see like how their vibrations are so different, and how they manifest into different medicines and different potencies. And it's fascinating. So he is very passionate about like us taking plants more seriously and respecting their role in keeping the earth healthy, and keeping even us healthy, and generation after generation supported. So he could talk forever about plants. So that's just kind of a brief
Yeah. No. How can these plants, well, you kind of, it's funny because your whole spiel kind of answered like the next kind of 2, 3 questions I had. But what about those people that say like, oh, so plants have brains now, so if you chop them up, their feelings get hurt and they feel the pain, you know, because there's some people that do say that.
Yeah, they don't have brains like we do.
Mm.
It's like their system is more distributed than ours. There's not like a central, there is in some plants, but from what he's showing me, this is the part of the problem, is that we think that our kind of consciousness is the only relevant type of consciousness. But most things in nature, everything in nature actually has consciousness. Even a rock has some sort of energy imprint consciousness. That's why when we work with crystals, we can, I know this sounds crazy to some, but we can talk to them, we can get information from them, we can channel them, and we can heal with them. So, but in order to accept that, you have to fundamentally accept that there are many different kinds of consciousness that humans had not even begun to tap into and understand yet. Because we're still think we are superior to everything, right? We're the top predator. And we think that like we're more powerful, more smart, more complex than the other life here on the planet. Not everyone thinks that. People who work in, he's showing like biologists, people who work as in marine biologists, different types of biologists, people who study microbes, like they actually really start to appreciate the complexity of these other forms of life, and they do have questions about their consciousness because they see how they react and how they have families of organisms with them, and it brings up all these questions. So he's saying to begin to understand any of this, it's important to start to learn to understand the idea of consciousness being such a varied and vast concept, and that, you know, it's a matter of just changing your perspective. So yes, they might feel pain, but it might be a different kind of pain or a different sensation, because plants do release, if they're threatened, a lot of plants will release a chemical that's supposed to ward off a threat, or they might have poison so that if an animal tries to eat them, they get sick and die. So plants defend themselves, which means, right, like he's pointing to the fact that like they still have to defend themselves. They're going to feel certain things in a different way maybe, but it's there. If that answered the question.
What does the future of medicine look like with plants? Or are they going to be involved a lot in the advancement of medicine?
Absolutely. He's saying they already are, but they're going to be even more so. He's saying, okay, so he's talking about the fundamental breakdown between Eastern and Western medicine. For those of you who are unfamiliar kind of with those terms, it's like Western medicine is like the hospitals, pharmaceuticals, technology, and then Eastern medicine is more rooted in, you know, remedies from plants and kind of foods and activities and things like that, like Ayurveda or like Chinese medicine. So that's kind of the different schools of thought, and they're not very accepting of each other right now because they're seeing worlds apart. But really, a lot of those pharmaceuticals do come from plants and from natural compounds that have been refined, basically. So there are doctors and pharmacists who are starting to get curious more about more unrefined, let's say, plant medicines. So like you could see CBD as an example from hemp and cannabis. And they are powering a lot of healing right now. And so you see it everywhere now because people are starting to get more open-minded. So CBD, for an example, is like a great open gateway now for more types of plant medicine to come through, he's saying. So we're going to see a lot more study. There hasn't been as much study as needs to be to start to understand dosages and interactions. Most doctors still don't know what interactions occur between an herbal supplement or plants and pharmaceuticals. So it's kind of dangerous. It's a little of a weird world right now, but it's coming. It's just going to take some time.
And finally, what good can we do to play our part with plant consciousness?
Well, first of all, just like zoom in a little bit. So he's showing like when you're putting your foot down, look what's beneath it. Because just because it's smaller than you or it can't talk doesn't mean it's not feeling something or doesn't have a right to live or be respected. So he's just saying, like, you don't have to be paranoid, but he's saying, like, to look beneath your foot before you step. That's what he said, to look beneath your foot before you step. You know, maybe there's a little seedling there that's just trying to start growing. Maybe, you know, there's a plant that you just obliterated because you weren't paying attention. And he says, and in that, we learn to be more aware and more conscious of our own lives and our environment. So he's using the metaphor of the foot and what's beneath it. And humans are usually just stomp all over everybody. We stomp all over each other. We stomp all over the earth and all the animals and the plants. And we just think that, like, we have a right to do that. But he's saying, stop, pause, walk slower, look around you, and put yourself into that position. And imagine, like, okay, if this plant has consciousness, how would it feel right now if I was stepping on it? Like, or, you know, not giving thanks to it before I obliterate it, you know? And we have to eat something. We have to eat. There's not like it's wrong to eat, you know, sustenance, okay? But they deserve respect too. That's what he's saying. So be aware, be conscious, and start to pay attention where you step.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for teaching us more about plants.
He has so much more to talk about too. So if you ever want to talk about it again, he's like, oh, this was just a little bit. Like, so yeah. So.
Well, I guess we'll have to do part 2.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Grandpa.